This video is going to teach you how to worksheet front, back, and top light. By worksheeting, all I mean is figuring out how many lights you need and what the coverage is. So this is actually going to be part 1 of 2. We're going to work in the section first, and then we're going to be working in the plan. The first thing I've done is I've drawn a person at each of my areas along center line. These people are 6 feet tall, which is a pretty safe height for an actor. And notice that this person at center is standing on the platform, so I want to make sure that I know that person is taller. The way I found these is I took my areas that I put on my ground plan, I lined up my section with my ground plan, and then I just drew a person anytime I had the center of an area. I drew these directly on the section because we're going to be using the same focus points over and over. Everything else, we're going to put on tracing paper so we can overlay it and change our minds as much as we want. Before I figure out any lights on the plot, I've broken down my areas, put my people in the section, I've made my needs list, so I've gone back to my research and looked at everything I need to make the light plot look like what I'm imagining. I've made a list of every system and special that I need. Then I'm going to make what I called a conceptual hookup. This is just combining your areas with your needs list. For this video, I've made a really short one. I've decided for my production, I need pink front light and I need LED top light. I've listed each one of my areas here in this column. I've given it a channel number. This is how I'm going to organize controlling my lights. I've also listed a possible fixture. I don't know exactly what this is going to be yet, but I have an idea. I know that for my front light, I want something with shutters. So I'm going to pick a source 4 conventional because I only want this to be pink. My top light, I've looked at my research and I want a lot of different colors. So I'm going to go with an LED wash fixture. I don't need any shutters on this. I just want an even wash across the stage with any color I want. In this column over here, I've put how many I've used. So that's all of these. And then what the inventory is, how many lights I have to work with, and then how many are left. And I get this information from the assignment sheet right here. Every theater has an inventory to work in. And one of the good parts about doing your hookup first before you put lights on is that you shouldn't wind up way over the inventory and draft all of those lights and find out too late that you have to go back and cut a lot of things and reconceptualize. So this is going to keep us on track. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cover my section in tracing paper and I'm going to trace the section. The parts of the section I definitely want to trace are the set, the audience risers, the plaster line, my people, and the grid. I don't need to go into full detail with all of this scenic work, but I'm going to get the basics in. For right now, I'm only concerned with my areas that are on the center line. If your areas are staggered, we'll talk a little bit about what to do with that at the end of this video. And just notice that I'm not super precious about it. I'm just putting in my people freehand. And if you don't have your pipes labeled in the section up here, if that's not in your drafting, then you should grab that information from your ground plan and go ahead and put that in. Next, I'm going to make a design decision about my pink front light that was on my conceptual hookup. I'm going to slide my beam template here, slide it under my section. And I'm gonna look at a couple options before I draw anything. Maybe I want it super steep and I want some shadows on the face, or maybe I want it really, really flat. What I'm always doing here is I'm taking the fixture and I'm dropping it down from the pipe about 18 inches. That's to compensate for the yoke and the C-clamp, and in a small space like this, it does make a difference. I'm also making sure that the center of the light is centered right on the actor's face. Since I'm doing front light, that's what I'm worried about here, is looking at the actor's face and lighting that with the brightest part of the light, something in the middle. And I decide that by going back to my design narrative and looking at when I use this pink front light and what it means and what I've already shown. I'm gonna hang it on pipe 13. Now, I still don't know what type of light this is. I know I want a source 4, but I don't know what barrel I want. I'm gonna actually look at a couple options. There are 2 barrels on the inventory, so I'm gonna look at both of them and see which is more appropriate. There are the 70 degrees and the 50 degrees. On my beam template, 70 degrees are purple. I'm going to take this and look at what a 70 degree does. And I'm gonna trace this beam as far as I can, all the way past the wall for reasons that you will find out in the next video. I'm also going to take my green pencil and look at a 50 degree. So you can try some things without tracing the set over and over. Next, I'm going to figure out how bright these are. To figure out the brightness of my light, I'm going to open the ETC Photometrics app, and that's free on the App Store. Up at the top, I'm going to sort by type, and I know the fixture I want is a spot, a light with shutters. And for this system, I've decided to use conventionals. I'm going to scroll to the right until I see the fixture just labeled source 4 and click on that. In the optic field, that's where I put the lens I think I want. For right now, I'm guessing. The theater's inventory can point you in the right direction. If they have a lot of one particular barrel, that means they use it often. So I'm going to start with the 70 degree. Under lamp, that's the light bulb, we're going to use a fairly generic one. We're going to pick any volts, 575 watts, and the 115 300 hour version. Under color, I can pick a color that corresponds to the shade of pink I want. And if you remember from the color lecture, a darker gel cuts down on the amount of light coming through. And I want to know how bright these lights are going to be, in addition to knowing if they'll cover the stage without dark spots. Under gel picker, I'm looking at the Lee colors because I have that swatch book, and that helps me know what the gel will look like in real life. I want a light pink, so I'm going to pick Lee 035. Next, the throw distance is simply the distance from the lens of the light to the actor's face. That's where I'm concerned about brightness with front light, lighting faces. When I type that in at the bottom, it'll spit out a number in foot candles. And generally for theater, I like to shoot for somewhere around 100 or 150 foot candles in a small space. I often go higher in a larger theater to help people sitting far away, but here, somewhere around that number will give you enough brightness, but not so bright that you have to dim everything down so far that you're muddying your colors. Next, I want to remember what this is, so I'm going to say it's 70 degrees, 176 for candles. The next thing I want to do is I want to go through my areas and try to replicate that angle. Coming over to 2C, this is very, very close. So I'm going to hang here on pipe 11. And I'm going to pick the same type of light because I know that I want the same brightness on each person's face. So this is the throw distance here. I'm going to measure again to check myself, but this was 8.5 feet, and this is 8.5 feet. If there was a big difference here, I would go ahead and recalculate my foot candles in the app, but I don't have to here. You'll notice for this light here that I changed the angle just a little bit from here. So I pushed it straight over and it didn't quite line up. I tipped it just a little, and that's okay. We don't need to hang a new pipe just to have it move 6 inches or something like that. You won't be able to see the angle change. The next person that I'm going to light is higher up, so I am going to want to look for an angle change and see if I can still get it close. You can see here, if I go over to pipe 7, I'm a lot steeper. And if I just go to pipe 8, I'm a lot flatter. But if you remember from our ground plan, I also have this pipe that's pretty close to center line, pipe D, that spans all of these pipes. I'm going to go ahead and split the difference. And I'm going to go ahead and hang that on pipe D. And you'll notice that the throw distance is quite a bit shorter. If this is 8.5 feet, then this is about 6 feet. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the app and see how much brighter it is. I know from my inventory that I don't have any barrels that are bigger than a 70. So if I was using a 50-degree barrel, since this is shorter, I might want to go up to a 70 to try and keep things even. But since I don't have a 90-degree in the inventory, I'm probably just going to have to live with the difference, but that's okay because I'm going to control these separately with different channels. That means I can always dim this one down more than these. Now I can see that upstage, downstage, I have plenty of coverage for all of these people. So someone can walk down these stairs and always be in light all the way downstage. And I don't need to use the whole beam. Remember, if I don't want so much light on the wall up here, I can shutter down. And that's often what I do, is I don't want the downstage area to light all the way upstage and have light on the set. I want to hit that only here. So I'm going to shape my beam with shutters, and I'm looking at that right now, and I'm making a note for focus. The next thing we have to figure out is if these beams are going to cover side to side. If we look at our ground plan, I know that the beams of light cover this way. I don't know that they cover this way yet. In the next video, part 2, we're going to figure that out. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that we're going to look at what to do if your areas don't align in a perfect grid, like mine don't. I've taken these areas on the side and dropped them downstage just a little bit so that they're at more important places for the show and that they're not too close to the other areas. What I'm going to do is take my drawing, and I know this is pipe 7, so I'm going to align this pipe with pipe 7. I'm going to draw a guideline that's going to let me make sure that these are in the right place. Now I can take pipe 7, put it on my guideline, and see where these areas are. So I have an area here that's 3 left, and I have an area here that's 4 left. And I'm going to note that even though 4 left looks like it's pretty close to 4 center left, this is actually on the ground and this is actually on the deck. So when I draw my people, I'm going to want to make sure that this is actually on the ground and it's going to be more like this height. Now I'm going to take these 2 people and give them beams of light exactly how I did this. Since they're part of the same system, I'm going to keep the angle the same and probably keep the type of light the same, since it's going to be a similar throw distance. I would hang this light on pipe 10 and this light on pipe 8. So I could just draw those in, and if it gets too chaotic, then you can do these two on a different section, but you don't need to draw the section if you can tell which areas they are, and it helps to label them down here.